Greetings, Game Changers. This is Classic Games Redefined. My name's Rich. We're looking at another Universal Mutator. And I'll go into the origins of this Mutator and give the name in a second once I explain the origins and wonder what in the heck all this equipment here is. The middle of the board here is just any sort of game that you would want to drop down that's a cooperative game. There is one problem that happens that people play games and want to have people playing and participating engaged in it. It's called the alpha gamer problem. That problem there consists of that one player will end up totally dominating the situation and dictating where everybody goes. That, for somebody who wants to be involved and feel like they're competing and doing stuff, could be seen as a problem, and there's a problem with the term social loafing, which consists of people going along as free riders and not participating. Well, yes, it could be a problem in a number of things by introducing a trader and other things to a game. There's ways to combat it. But let's look at it a little bit differently here, and this is the basis of this Universal Mutator here, which I am calling Top Alpha. Let's say, instead of doing a trader and anything else, we're to roll with this. Let's say, for example, we're to totally play a cooperative game to the extent that one person is going to be the dominant player in the game and do things. Okay, let's do that, but let's make a game out of that. And that's what this is what the Top Alpha Universal Mutator is about. I have two cards dealt here. These either could be both dealt to the players at the beginning of the game, and in which case you're going to have to introduce another scoring mechanism for balancing this, or you can randomly deal one or more of the following. What I'm going to do here is that, let's say, for example, if the person's dealt a 2, or one card, that indicates that they are not, if this is their card that they're going to have, they won't be in an alpha position, not in leadership. Personally, I believe, and the reason why I'm looking at it is the alpha player gamer situation arises because in any group dynamic, there's a natural tendency to want to have leadership. And what the alpha player provides is leadership. So this Mutator works with that and says, how can we actually turn that into a game element? And this game element, because it's universal, can apply to a lot of cooperative games, either allow players a choice to think they're going to go for it, and can go for it, you randomly deal it. And then the idea here is that there's a little bit of a competition amongst people who want to be in a leadership position or thrust into it, that they have to do it. The way it works as follows, and there are several ways to adjust it, is let's say in a given turn, we have our environment here. I'm just using these red blocks to say, and this is a 6-player game, more or less players, whatever. What we'll do at the beginning of a round, turn, by which players do things, one person is going to decide, is going to be voted upon, they're going to be the alpha, the top player in the game. So we're having competition who's the best one. Let's say it's this player here. And the end result was that they can either be the alpha or not the alpha. Let's just go around and let's say they're an alpha. And this player decides this player either was randomly dealt the 2 card or something else. Okay, let me do the following. Move them out of the way. Let's say that we're going to have, for the game, only 2 alphas in the game. Okay. 2 alphas. Player where I am and the other person. So, oh, I grabbed the wrong one. So let's get these out of here. We could have, as I said, randomly dealt, put a number in there. Depending on the game, you'd have it accordingly or not. So let's say these 2 players are. Okay. Then that player is going to make the decisions for all the players in the game here. They can govern in the style, and I'll explain in a minute how this player can get out of it, because they voted for it. I mean, how he can be removed from this position here. But these blocks indicate who it is. And by the way, if you want to do the following, let's do the following. If we want to make good old big blocks back. So each turn, we will indicate who the alpha player is by giving them the big indicator. And then for every turn they also get one of those small ones to indicate they were there. And I'll explain in a minute why that works. So they're going to make the decision. They're going to get input from everybody else in the game. And they're going to make a decision. They can govern dictatorially. They can actually take participation cooperatively. A lot of leadership styles you would have. And if that turn's over, then the next turn would come up and then the voting would decide. You can either have one where one of the players in the game could say, I'm tired of enough, I want to have another vote for the person. Or that would be a way to speed it up, or every turn force it to be such. And then they'll have a vote. Of course, the person who has a tiebreaker does it. And you could also play possibly that there is no leader if you want to do that. But anyhow, let's say, for example, play with an odd number, there's a tiebreaker. So then you use a voting mechanism. Okay, and he goes again. And you keep playing till it's over. Now let's say, for example, this player became leadership. He got tired of it. Okay. He can get leader for a turn or two. And let's say I'm here. And it goes on, and I managed to do a fairly good time. I'm able to win the trust of people, do that by doing decent. Kind of works a little bit like a traitor element in a game, in which case there's one person that has a different role than other players. Across, and then these blocks go until it's all over. You're keeping track of it is. And then what it was is that, I don't know, let's say, for example, these went on, and imagine these represented. I'll take these out of the way. See these here? Imagine each of these are like 5 or whatever else. I'm just going to have it here. What I'm going to do here at this point is that you end up looking, after the turn's done, you say, who are the actual alpha players? So everybody would end up flipping. Okay. They would flip and saying, oh, the guys who have the card that indicates that they're thing, you look amongst them, and the player who had most of these red blocks, but if they won, okay, mind you, if they won the game here, then you look amongst these to see which of the alpha players was voted by the players to be their leader the most amount of turns. At that point, that player would consider the leader among the alpha players. If you're playing for scoring, you could all doing multiple rounds. You could do 1 point per 1 point for winning the game, and if you're a leader, you get another point that way. If you want to play with where the players decide whether or not they're going to be in, you could do it that way. In the case the players lost, the leader would actually get no points, or could have could lose a point, for example. In which case, if the at that point here, another thing that happens here, you can make the leadership a bit gambling. That if they won, and here's another thing that happened: if somebody's a leader position, they're going to vote for the alpha. Okay, and they didn't get the most amount of blocks. They did not politic correctly to do it. They get no points even though the team won. The end result was a gaming effect you have here by implementing this. Is that you got players end up subversively looking like they're a traitor. They could cause the game to want to tank so nobody gets any points. They spite it. So it has a similar message of breaking up the love fest that you have in a cooperative game. And the end result was that you get something in effect that's similar to a traitor but isn't. The alpha in here would be the opposite of what a traitor is. They're trying to get the game to win normally. So you have that. You can also play a game here. By the way, on these blocks here, let's do the following. Let's say that a non-alpha player here. Let's say this player ends up jumping in. They're not an alpha. They're not going to win. But they get the predominance of the leadership blocks here. You can play it one of two ways. You can do the tiebreaker amongst the alpha players, whoever got the most. Or you can say amongst all players, if you want to have more challenging. The alphas, if they don't manage to get that here the most amount of time, they don't do it. So they have to compete in politics and do whatever they can to get a leadership position, just as anybody would. While at the same time, if they're going to get the most, not make sure that they don't lose. Now there's a case here is, let's say, for example, we end up tying. You could also then, at that point here, say that neither one of these guys won because they didn't get it more turns that way. But anyhow, just an idea here. You're going to have to tweak this depending on the game to get this to work. It's an idea here. What you're doing is that there's just a voting mechanism for determining who's going to be the alpha player and who's going to be able to make the deciding decisions here. And that's pretty much what it was. And then the player who managed to be the most turns of a successful run wound up being the top alpha. And that's where the name comes from. So anyhow, that's about it. There's sure more could be added. I might annotate some stuff here, but other than that, I'm just introducing this as a discussion, as a way to actually go with the alpha player situation, actually turn into a game. So anyhow, that's the latest. I do want to thank you for watching. May your die always roll 5. And remember, don't hate the player, change the game.